Good. Okay. All righty. Well, it's really good to be here. And I always love speaking to young people about how they can understand the value that they can offer to organizations and communities and helping them to do the best job that they can to put their best foot forward, right? Because this is the basis of how you're going to make a living, how you're going to contribute to society and the community, how you're going to develop yourself in terms of your body, your mind, and your soul. And so we're going to be talking today. Can you see the slides okay? Yes? Okay, very good. I want to share, and I recognize, in fact, let me set a timer here to keep myself honest. 7 thoughts about resume preparation. Now, I appreciate that this is coming from a background of nearly 40 years that I have been either working on and evolving my own resume, looking at the resume of other people because I'm coaching them or because I'm hiring them. Um, and the point that Miguel made is a very valid one, which is that resumes are organic. And what I mean by that is that throughout your entire life and career, your resume will be continually evolving. I love the fact that the human resources group from Fingerpaint has been invited to actually review your resumes because this brings up another very important point, and that is that few people can prepare a good resume all by themselves because all of us have blind spots. We have a tendency to devalue or to not think well of our strengths. We're overly modest, right? We also, when we talk about our own experience and background, have a way of articulating it where we understand it, but sometimes other people don't understand it. So the beauty of having people like the group from Fingerpaint tonight who will take your resume and look at it is that you actually will accelerate the quality of your resume by having them look at it, answering questions they ask you about it, and then taking on the feedback that they offer to you. Okay, so let me get to it. So the first thing, so um, the job description is where the preparation of any resume starts. And I often will have people send me their resume and they say, "Tell me what you think of my resume." And I'll say to them, "Well, I can't really tell you what I think of your resume unless you send me the job description that you're applying for, because the resume needs to be fit to the job description for which it's being prepared." Where even if you say, "Well, I just want to, have a general resume," even with the general resume, it has to be based on some combination of jobs that you have a desire to get. And I will often say to people that when developing your resume, one of the really good things to do is to start with job description research. That is, go on LinkedIn or Indeed, find the job that you will most likely want, and let's call it your dream job. And then gather 4 or 5 of those job descriptions and read them, identify the similarities in them, because fundamentally a job description is what we call a value request. Okay. Now, when I use the word value, I'm talking about anything that an organization desires that is going to help them to accomplish the objectives that they have, or anything that we as an individual or group of individuals offer that some organization, institution, or community is going to value. And these values tend to come in some categories, right? So we think about skill sets, areas of knowledge, types of experience, different types of relationships, and ultimately, and we're going to talk about this, the results that that combination of things produces based on our history and our track record. All right. So I want you to take a special note here. Doing job description research can be very helpful to helping you to start out on the best foot. Why? Because it helps you to better understand what organizations are actually requesting when it comes to value. Now, when you appreciate that, you then can understand how the resume is fundamentally how you are going to offer value. Now, in order to do that well, you have to have some understanding or appreciation of what your value is. And this is where I get back to the point about you can never come up with a good list of I should say, a complete list of what you have to offer as value by yourself. Because as human beings, we have this thing called the imposter. It is the voice of, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, right? So it's always been very helpful to me to go talk to friends and family, uncles, aunts, grandparents. I mean, they have been watching us since we were babies. They understand things about us in terms of what we've always been good at that perhaps we don't even know. When I had this conversation with my parents, they told me, well, you know, Craig, you've been teaching since you were 8 years old, right? And then I take that on. Then that, of course, progresses to ask your teachers, ask people that you've worked in jobs with, ask if you're in a community of faith and you work in some kind of ministry or volunteer work. Always be asking the people around you, what do you see in me that is a strength or a gift? And understand that that's the basis of the value you can offer. And that's what your resume should be composed of. And by the way, don't only look at situations where you've been paid. This is another mistake people made. Well, you know, that's not important because it wasn't a job where I got paid for it. No, actually, some of the best development you get in your career is when you do something I call volunteering, right? You develop your career through opportunities where you get to contribute, even if you don't get paid to do it. Most of the money that I make today began as things that I volunteered to do, not even things that I went to college for. But I worked in nonprofit organizations, developed that skill over a decade or more, and got so good at it that now I can charge people for it. So do not underestimate the value of things that you develop, even when you're not being paid for it. Now, number 3. Oh, and by the way, I should say, please speak up or send questions through chat if you have a question. And if you have a question and you feel kind of embarrassed about it, like, oh man, I don't want anybody to hear me ask that question, ask the question, send the question to me privately. And then I will not divulge your identity, but I will answer your question, okay? All right. So now, you can appreciate that where there is a match between the job description, the value being requested, and the resume, the value being offered, this is where the win is going to be. Getting hired requires matching the value that you have to offer with the value that's being requested, which is why one of the first things you do when you get a job description and you read through it, you want to start circling or underlining or highlighting right away. This is the match between what they're asking for and what I believe I can offer, or what one of my mentors told me I can offer, even if I don't believe it, right? Sometimes you look at the job description, you go, oh man, I'm not good enough for that. If one of your mentors or relatives say, well, that's not what I think you are good enough. Believe them more than you believe your own imposter, okay? But do understand that the best match wins when it comes to being hired. Okay, next. So getting hired requires emphasizing results because fundamentally, any organization or institution or community that hires you to do a job, while they're going to give you a set of tasks to perform, at the end of the day, what they want is a result. Now, results tend to come in a few different varieties. Typically, you are going to make or save time. You are going to make or save money, or you are going to facilitate, that is, improve or save a relationship of some sort. Hold on a second. Now, does that make sense? make her save time, make her save money, improve or save, that is, keep from falling apart, some sort of relationship. This is actually a rubric that I've used throughout my career when I'm thinking about any job that I've done. And actually, when you're doing a job, it's actually good to keep a journal. Because if you work a job for even 6 months and you're not keeping a journal of the results that you're producing, it's going to be very difficult for you to remember later. What did I actually produce on that job? And this is one of the reasons why you see lots of resumes where people will list a lot of activity. And it's not that listing activity is not a good thing to do, but understand that the resume that has results, in addition to activity, is going to always have an advantage in the eyes of the person that's hiring. That is always going to be a better match in the mind of the person hiring than if you just have lots of activities. So pay attention to results. And if you say, well, I'm working this job and I don't really know what my results are, that's a conversation to have with the person you're working for, is ask them, you hired me to do this job. I'm coming to work day in and day out. You're paying me either money or opportunity to gain experience. What are the results that I'm producing in this job that you think are really important? And then when they tell you that, you write that down, you keep track of that in a journal, and you make sure that that becomes a part of your resume moving into the future, okay? So the best match wins. The best match with results wins even better. Now, next. So when you organize your results, there are two types of resume organizations generally that can be considered. There's kind of the classic resume we call chronological, where it's a list of your jobs because it allows us to see on a timeline where you've worked and gained experience and offered value. But there's another organization where you actually organize not by timeline, but by skill set. Now, I have a particular preference for the skill set organization, and here's why. As a hiring manager, I have the job description in mind. The job description is not organized by time. It's organized by skill set. So if I pick up a resume, I can read through, okay, you worked here this year, that year, this year. But it's so much easier for me if I'm looking for someone who's a communicator, a project manager, able to work well under pressure. Let's just stick with those three things. If you take all of your different experiences and you group them. So you're going to give me 3 examples, even though it might have been in different jobs where you produced a result through good communication. Another 3 examples where you produce results working under pressure. You see my point? That's going to allow me as the hiring manager to more quickly identify and understand that you have more of what it is that I'm looking for in the job description. And then I'm going to be, frankly, more likely to call you in for the interview. But if you make me work, I've got to kind of work through this chronology to try to figure out where you're a good fit. You might put yourself at a disadvantage. Now, understand, it is possible to prepare a resume format that actually includes both. So it's not all or nothing. But I just wanted to offer this as a suggestion. And this is something you can ask our colleagues from Fingerpaint about, and they'll have an opinion and a point of view about that also. Okay, number 6. Now, resumes are good, but appreciate that the shorter cut to a job is referrals. So I can have a really good resume, right? And I can send that resume into lots of companies. And yeah, there are going to be instances where someone at the company sees the resume, especially if it has lots of results, a really good match to the job description, and perhaps that skill organization, and you may get hired. But get this, what if somebody who works in that company, who knows the hiring manager, or who used to work in that company, can take your resume and actually put it in the hands of someone in that company or that hiring manager. That's going to give you an advantage. Most jobs, I shouldn't say most, very many jobs are obtained because you know someone who knows someone. Use this to your advantage. This means that when you're looking for work, don't let it be a secret. Okay? You let everybody who you never know who works for or knows someone who works in the company or the organization or the nonprofit where you're trying to get a job. And you're always going to have an advantage, provided that you got a resume that's a good fit. You're going to have an even better advantage if you have someone who can put your resume in the hand of somebody in that organization. All right? Why? Because we as managers tend to hire people who are affiliated with or who know the people who we trust. Okay? All righty. All right, this is my last point coming up, and then I'm going to take some questions. Now, LinkedIn, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, yeah, I did this video, and what you're going to see here is me scanning through my LinkedIn profile, okay? So, I tell people that these days, a good resume is, of course, good, but a good, complete LinkedIn profile is an absolute necessity. All right. So I encourage people to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is thoroughly filled out. Make sure that you are building a relevant network within LinkedIn, right? When you got the right relevant information about your career, you got recommendations, you put in key projects that you've worked on. And once again, not just the ones where you got paid money, right? Especially the ones that you did on a volunteer basis. The more of that information you have in LinkedIn, the more LinkedIn is going to be able to help you. It's going to send you jobs that are relevant for you, internships. It's going to present your profile to organizations and other professionals where there is a relevant affiliation and an opportunity for you to offer value, okay? And so, yes, I hear lots of people say, oh, I'm too young. Lots of young people, I should say. Yeah, I have a resume, but I don't really know anything about LinkedIn, or aren't I too young to have a LinkedIn profile? And my thing is, no. Even if you're as young as high school, perhaps even middle school, if you're starting to look at internships, going to college, getting into certain private schools, getting into certain academic programs and fellowships, you need a LinkedIn profile. All right? It's going to give you an advantage.